All right, so now we are recording and there's a couple other people joining in. So we'll, give it a little bit and then we'll recap as well. All right, so again, high level, the goal of this workshop is to help you think about a checklist for you as an agent that'll also work for other agents, predominantly, I don't want to say newer agents, but if you've already been in the business for 10, 15, 20 years, you probably have your own systems and models pretty much hammered out. So what we're trying to do is to create a system that will walk you through the entire life cycle of a new buyer, a new seller, a new tenant, a new landlord, anyone that's new, and it'll be in a spreadsheet format. However, you can embrace command. So I'm the tech driver for the Keller Williams Chicago Market Center, and the goal for me is to get agents to embrace command a little bit more. However, I'm not going to force you to use command. You can use whatever systems, models that works for you. And so having this checklist will help you to have that. So if we start, so within, so we've got different, so let me pull up command. So in command, we have these pre-built stages of the life cycle of a seller, which will be listings, and the life cycle of a buyer, which you see as buyers. And further down, there's leases, but we won't have time to get into that today. And as you can see on my dashboard, I have people already in these buckets. So as you talk to people, and our goal is to add people to our database, tell them about what we do, and to get them to agree to work with us, right? So in the cultivate phase, they really haven't agreed to work with us just yet. However, we've had a conversation with them that they're like, hey, Joe, I'm thinking about buying next year. Hey, I'm thinking about buying, but I won't be ready till the fall. I'm thinking about buying, but it's not for another 3 months. All right. So as soon as you have that conversation with someone, and we'll focus on buyers first because that's what just makes it a little bit easier but the process is going to be pretty much the same. All right. So the spreadsheet is going to match the cultivate, the appointment, the active, the under contract, and close. So that's the life cycle of a buyer, whether you're in Keller Williams or a different brokerage, that's still the life cycle of a buyer. That doesn't change. What we're working to do, the goal is to get a system in place to help you remember to reach out to people. Because how many of you have had calls where someone says, hey, I'm thinking of buying in 3 months, and then 3 months goes by, and you go to call them, and they're like, oh, I already bought a place, right? That hurts when that happens. That hurts when that happens. So what is your step to capture them such that you can follow up with them at a future date? All right, so that's what this is. So again, we don't have to focus so much on command because the steps will be in here, and then we're gonna, you can keep it in the spreadsheet. Ideally, you'd wanna put it in command, all right? So this is intended to be interactive where you can say, hey, here's what we do, right? And so we can customize it, make changes. Again, Ladwina is on here too, and she probably has a lot of experience. And so her checklist, where here it's 18, it goes down to line 18. Hers might go to line 30. She might have 30 things in there, right? So we're looking to create something that is bare bones, what you should have at various stages. All right, so let's take the 9 month. So in command, it just says, and I'm going to be toggling back and forth, it just says cultivate appointment. So let's click on cultivate to see what that looks like in command. In command, it just says watch here. Now mine says greater than 365 because I customized it. Because I like to know, because if it just says watch, what does that mean to you without putting some timeline in there? So you can see here it says 365. So this is someone that says, I'm looking next year, right? Versus nurture is 3 months or 90 days to a year in my command. And hot is less than 3 months away. So you can customize that. So in this one, I'd say, watch is 9 months or greater, nurture is 3 to 9 months, and hot is less than 3 months. Right? So we can figure out what that means for us, but right now command just says watch, and that might not be as important, relevant as to, it might not register in your brain, what does that mean? So you have a new person, you're like, where do I put them? This helps with clarity on that. Oh, they're next year, I'm gonna add them to the watch. All right, so what happens in watch? So I've got a couple categories here. So the left category says added, meaning you've completed that step, right? So you're adding someone in your command database or any CRM system. What do you need? Their name, their phone number, email address, right? And so this is try to get their, so if you're adding them in there, you're already talking to them. Hopefully you have their name, right? So that's not in here. However, what if you only have their first name, right? How many of you have names in your phone just by first name, right? A lot of us do that. And it's like, geez, I really don't know your last name. I just call you Joe. So obviously we want to try to get, and the percentage here is very command specific because that is relating to the score, the health score of the client in your database. So the email address is worth 20%. Phone is worth 20%, name is worth 20%, and their current address is also worth 20%. So if you're looking at the health score of your database, and it says, oh, you have an average of 58% health score, it means you don't have all the information about someone. And that could be one of your goals as well, to figure that out. All right. So as you see here, it says update contact info as much as possible. It's kind of vague and generic, but that's the intent of that, is to get you to think about what additional information can you get for this buyer. All right, and then lead source. It's important for us to capture as early as possible, what is the source of the lead? Where did they come from? Did you randomly pick them up from somewhere? Did they come from another agent? Did they come from a past client? Did they come from a friend? So knowing the source of the lead helps you in terms of what I consider your marketing budget. So if you're spending money to get leads and you want to keep track of that, if you're spending $500 a month for this lead capture website and you're getting zero return, don't you want to know that? Right? Are you going to continue to spend $500 a month on a lead capture website that isn't giving you a rate of return? Right? So you want to be able to capture them. And then this next one is send a thank you note to the referral source. The referral source, again, could be another real estate agent, because we can pay other agents referral fees, right? The referral source could be your best friend, it could be a past client, it could be a lender, it could be an attorney, it could be your mom, it could be aunts, uncles, whatever that is. You want to thank them, and you want to thank them for sending you the business. You don't want to wait till the very end, because it could be 6 months before someone buys something, and you want to thank that referring person right away. Does that make sense? Right? Because if I sent you a lead and A, you didn't ever acknowledge and thank me, B, you never kept me in the loop as to what's going on, how likely am I to send you another lead? Probably not very likely, because it's like, well, Chloe didn't care about me. She didn't even acknowledge that I sent the lead. Okay. So we want to start tagging people as well. So that's a contact tag. And for my purposes, I've got an active buyer tag, a newsletter tag as basic tags, right? In terms of this conversation, this is the buyer checklist, right? So they're potentially an active buyer. And the reason why you want to start tagging them is so that you can search by, I want to find all my active buyers. I want to find all my active sellers. I want to find all my closed buyers, all my closed sellers. So you want to create a group, a tag that makes it easier for you to find these people. All right, then I've got an email of tell our story. So that would be very specific to me, but I'm going to leave that in there because I think it's important for us to tell our story as to why we're in real estate, how we're going to help them. So that leads me to the other two checkboxes here. So this one says CLUPD, which stands for client update. And this one is, there's a template email that corresponds to that process, right? So when it says send thank you to referral source, if we have that referral source email, we should send them an email thank you, which is more immediate. And then I would also do a handwritten personal note, right? So in my system, it would be 2 touches. For the average agent, at a minimum, send at least one person that message of thank you, right? The more you thank people and give gratitude for the business that's coming in, the more likely there are going to be repeats here. All right, so then I've got some discussion points, right? So in that watch cycle, 9 months out, do they have something to sell? Right? Make sure you have that conversation with them because that'll lead to additional steps of follow-up down the road. If they're renting, when is the lease due? Right? So we're putting some discussion topics in here and we're hoping that they're in the right area, right? So that's why, you know, we're playing around with this. Maybe in your mind, you're like, hey, it's too early to ask them because they're next year buyer. Let me ask them when they're 3 to 9 months. So it's really easy for you to copy from this column and put it into the nurture column if that's how you want to run your business. Again, the goal here is to create something so that you do have a follow-up plan in place that 80% of the agents can use. All right, so now here's where it gets very command specific because it starts talking about smart plans. So if you don't have smart plans and you're not using command, can you still add them to a quarterly call? Right? The assumption is that your CRM system that you're using, if you're not using command, will have some sort of feature in there that will remind you, hey, I need to call this person once a quarter. Okay, so we have in command a smart plan that'll do that. That'll remind you to give someone a phone call, right? Then I've got another smart plan based off the discussion point of, are they renting? When is their lease due, right? So if I know when their lease is due, hey, Joe, I just renewed my lease for a year, so I'm not going to be starting to look till fall. Once I know that when their lease is due, then I can backtrack and say, all right, 9 months out or 3 months before the end of their lease is when I want to start a different process with them. I want to be more engaged. And maybe it's 6 months out, right? Because if the goal is to convert a renter to a buyer, what are the steps in that? Right? And we're not going to go through all the details of what that step is, but that's what you should be thinking about is what are the steps that you have in place to convert a renter to a buyer? Okay? And if they have something to sell, what is that process? When do you want to sell? Can you buy before you sell? Do you have to sell first? So again, it's just triggering in your mind some processes that need to take place. All right? Then I've got, you know, once I've gotten their email, then I can add them to a monthly newsletter, right? And you can see here it says tag of newsletter that we put in earlier, contact tag. Again, I'm speaking command language. If you're not using command, there's probably something in your system that will accommodate this type of structure for you. All right, so what does that monthly newsletter look like? We're not getting into the details of that, but just know that that should be part of your what we might call a 36 touch, which I'm getting away from calling it a 36 touch. Just a systematic touch program is what I'm going to probably start calling it. All right. And then is there a plan? I've got a smart plan for a buyer watch. So they're a buyer. what are the steps of, hey, I want to stay in communication with them, whether it's text, email, phone call, whatever that follow-up is, an article of some sort about buying and why it's a good time to buy, interest rates, whatever that buyer watch smart plan is. Again, we're not going through the details, just going through the basic constructs. All right, then, I've got here, find them on social media. Example, Facebook. So whatever your social media platforms you're on and have a business presence on, right? Because you're in business. Do you have a business presence on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, whatever social media you're on, and should you be on social media, right? So you want to find them and see if you can get them to like your business page, which is actually, so those are the basics constructs of someone that's 9 months or plus out. And then as you engage with them over that time period, you're doing quarterly calls and you're going to ask them, are you still looking for next June? It's like, oh no, let's look for fall. So you might move them from one group to the next. So the next group is the nurture 3 to 9 months out. All right, so the first one in every category is review outstanding items. So if you move them, or let's say they already said that they're 9 months out. So if they're 9 months out, you're not going to put them here, you're going to put them directly in the nurture program. However, there's all these things that you want to make sure you've implemented. So this is saying, review any outstanding items, meaning here's your checklist. Has everything on that checklist been crossed off? If not, why? And if you're skipping processes, then should they be in here to begin with? Right? So that's how I want you to start thinking about this. So in this, review any prior actions, items, that's going to be in every single one of these items, just to remind you to go and check. So the nice thing about having it in a spreadsheet is everything's in front of you. So you could have this spreadsheet for every person, which would be a lot, or you can enter them in command where you have all these checklists in place, and then for each person it's already built in. All right, so now we have some smart plans. Now that they're closer, now I feel more comfortable sending them a monthly neighborhood nurture or a bi-weekly neighborhood nurture. If they're 9 months out, it might just be a monthly, right? Realistically, if they're hot, that's when I would probably do the bi-weekly, but I'm just putting it in there as a placeholder that you want to reach out to them with some properties, even though they're still that far out in the future. And the closer they are, the more frequently you're going to reach out to them. All right, then instead of a quarterly call, I might call them every other month. Okay, so again, it went from a quarterly call, where is that smart plan, and quarterly call smart plan, to a every other month phone call, to a monthly phone call, right? So you can see we're changing our strategy, our touches, our frequency of communication as we get closer and closer. Right? Then I might want to send them a buyer intake form. A buyer intake form is going to be something that says, what are you looking for? What's your budget? What's your wish list? And again, you could decide, hey, I'm not going to send that to them until they're more of a hot prospect. All right. Somewhere in there, I want to send them the buyer roadmap. The buyer roadmap is kind of like the life cycle of a transaction, where we're looking at properties, we're negotiating, we're doing the inspection, we have the attorney review, we have the appraisal, we have the clear to close. So I have that in a more graphical type flow, because I don't know that an email is going to have the same effect as a picture. So if I have a graphical of the buyer roadmap, which I do, then I would send them that, and then I might have it tweak where it's like, here's where we are today. And the next buyer roadmap would say, we are now here. And the next buyer roadmap would be, we are now here. Okay, so that they can see And then it takes away some of the questions of what's next. It's like, well, look at your roadmap. Here's where we are. Okay, at some point I want to share my Keller Williams app with them. Again, you could decide where that is. A year out might be a little bit premature. 3 to 9 months seems more appropriate to me. Again, you can move it from here to here if you want to. All right, inviting them to like your Facebook business page or social media. Okay, does this sound like checklists that are relevant to the life cycle of a buyer? And again, I do like it if we're a little bit interactive, so that I can, a head nod, or LaDuina, show me your face. You got a beautiful smile. Just kidding. All right. So then we have the hot, right? Hot is less than 3 months out. Again, the first step is review any prior transactions or review any outstanding items from before. So if you took them directly to hot, you want to make sure you start reviewing some of these. And again, you're not going to add them on a quarterly call and a every other month call and a monthly call. You're just going to go directly to monthly call. All right? Otherwise, your checklist is going to be like, call them quarterly. It's like, well, wait, I just called you yesterday. All right. So then if you didn't send them the buyer intake form, or you sent it to them, they didn't fill it out, here's another opportunity to review the buyer intake form for missing items. So the buyer intake form in my world is a Google Doc that asks them a bunch of questions. And oftentimes people just fill in the questions that they think are important for them at that moment in time. So this would give me an opportunity to say, hey, I see you didn't enter in that you have an attorney. Do you need an attorney recommendation, right? So whatever is missing, we look to get additional information. And here's where I might send an email of referral to my lending partners, which is an email then. And then an email about why Keller Mortgage, right? So I do have clients successfully close with Keller Mortgage. Again, we're with Keller Williams. Why wouldn't we promote that? And then share the Keller Mortgage link if they're like, yeah, I'm ready to go. And then some more discussion points. Preliminary search criteria, for example, that also ties into the buyer intake form. Discuss alternate neighborhoods, right? Chicago, I'm in Chicago, and someone says they're looking for a $200,000, their budget is $200,000, and they want a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and they want to be in the Gold Coast. I'm going to be like, that's not going to happen, right? Where that might happen might be, Uptown, Edgewater, Rogers Park, Albany Park. So we need to know the market well enough so that when someone says, hey, I want this for this price, you're not going to get that. Or if it is at that price, it's going to be a fixer-upper, right? So be able to discuss alternate neighborhoods for their search criteria. All right, so at this point, the goal should be to get that contact at an 80% complete score, right? And again, we talked about that earlier, where the name is worth 20%, the emails worth 20%, the phone is worth 20%, address is worth 20%, Facebook is 4%, the lead source is worth 4%. So there's a bunch of other ways to get to 80%, but those are the key topic points there. Smart plan, again, we talked about, you do want to call people, right? We do have telephones at work. We do want to call people. People want to hear from us. Don't be afraid of that. All right, then I've got this discuss multi-unit versus single unit, right? Why might I have that conversation with them? Right, if someone can qualify for a $250 condo, and I was able to get them a $400,000 2-unit building where a renter is paying more than half their mortgage, wouldn't that be a great long-term investment strategy for that buyer that maybe they didn't think about? So it satisfies two things. One, you've got a client that you're advocating for long-term wealth building, right? If you buy, again, we're in Chicago, so it's very condo-centric. If you bought a condo in the city of Chicago, what is the wealth building opportunity for that? Appreciation. And if there's not appreciation, then that's not really a good wealth building opportunity for you. However, if you buy a multi-unit and it doesn't cost you more per month because you have the renter tenant paying part of that. So if your out of pocket is the same, but now you have someone helping buy down your mortgage, then you have much more wealth building opportunity quicker, 2 times quicker than if you just bought the condo alone. All right, so I'm going to have that conversation and to see if I can get them to buy a multi-unit instead of just thinking, because they don't know that until you potentially plant that seed in their head. It's like, oh, I could do that. It's like, oh yeah, you can, and here's how we'll do that. All right, are there other decision makers in the buying process? Try to get to know that up front, because you don't want to be surprised where, oh, my mom's going to put in my down payment and she needs to see the property, and she's not even here in Chicago, and now we have to wait for her to fly in to take a look at this property, right? Then, you know, if the spring market is hot, like I anticipate it to be in Chicago, we're not going to have time for mom to fly in or drive in from the suburbs. We've got to make decisions pretty quick. All right, so this at a high level is what I'm looking to create for each of these categories, right? So we have cultivate, then the appointment, then the active, then the under contract. And you can see, you know, obviously under contract is going to be more about documents, contracts, much more involved, right? Active, we have discussion points of agency and compensation for sale by owners. So in this time period, we're not going to be able to go through every single checklist, every single transaction component. But what I'm looking to do is start sharing this with you guys, and ideally have you engaged in helping me to create this, because I'm just one person. And Chloe, if you have something on your checklist that you're like, hey, I do these 5 things, and then we can brainstorm and mastermind, it's like, that makes sense, let me add it. Or instead of adding it in Cultivate, maybe that's more an active step. Or if you're doing something in active, maybe it's like, well, it would have been helpful to know that earlier on. Where can we move that checklist to a different category, different stage? Does that make sense? So I'll open the floor for questions. You would have to unmute yourself.
I was talking with Selena and she showed me this and it was super helpful, like every single step laid out, and I absolutely loved it. And I was trying to figure out if I were to maybe print off this list, what would be the easiest way for me to be able to do that. And so what I ended up doing was I put all of these checklist items onto one sheet, and I went more down, and then like on the side I put like cultivate appointment active, so that way I had everything in one spot, just because I like to see a timeline a little bit better, like all out in one spot. I was just curious, like what your opinion was about formatting like that, or like why you chose this system to organize all of it, because it's very well laid out, and I do like your system a lot.
Yeah, so the original format of the spreadsheet was exactly as you defined, where you had it at the top and you kept scrolling down. However, in some of my categories, and again, this one is just a very basic one. In some of my categories, for example, under contract, it would be 50 deep. So then you would have, for example, like here you have, you know, you're at line 18 for this and line 10 for that and line 13 for this one. If all the categories had similar number of steps, then that would make sense. You go straight down and go that way. The other part of that is it's not only how deep they are, but how wide they are. right? So if I go to under contract, I've got a signed contract, I got a condo checklist, I got attorney review. Let me just keep going sideways here. Try to go sideways. Appraisal. So it started getting long as well as deep. So then it wasn't, you wouldn't be able to print it that way because it just wouldn't format properly. Once you go long, then it doesn't print very well. So I decided to break it down in 1 page per sheet. But yes, in an ideal world, I'd love to just be able to scroll down. So that's why I did it that way, because my checklist process is not all consistent this way. I've got some that are, 75 steps deep, right? So it just wouldn't make sense. Good question though. So yes, it originally started as 1 page, just going down. LaDuina, any questions from you?
No, sir, this has been great.
No, come on. I love hearing from you.
I don't have any questions. I think you did an excellent job.
So, LaDuina, just say a little bit about yourself, what your role is, so that we get a better understanding.
My name is LaDuina Smith. I am currently the assistant team leader at Keller Williams Preferred Realty in Orland Park. And so I assist our team leader with growth appointments and growing the office. I train and teach and also coach a nice group of agents in our market center.
Okay, so LaDuina, you would be a perfect person for me to talk to about what I'm going to talk about next. Is again, my goal is to create something that is compliant with the market center. So your market center. So for example, I've got 3 other market centers right now that are saying, "Hey Joe, can you come and pitch this to our market center?" Mm-hmm. Right, and so the market center would then help build this for the agents. Imagine, LaDuina, if all the agents in your market center had this checklist.
Yep.
Right? How, think of it from a retention point of view, from yep. That new agent that doesn't know what to do, and now they have this very detailed checklist broken down into sub-segments that if they were to look at it all at once, they're going to be like, I have no idea what this is all, and I'm running fast. Mm-hmm. Right? But if you have an opportunity to bring that to the agents to say, hey, if you follow this, all you're going to be compliant. You're not going to get rejects of, hey, you're missing these documents. You're going to get paid on time because you followed the checklist. So from a compliance perspective, it'll hit all the checklists and make your MCA and your compliance team a lot happier. Make your managing broker a lot happier because people are following rules and guidelines and models. And so to take it from here, and I'm in the city, so we do a lot of condos. If you're in the suburbs, you don't do a lot of condos, and you wouldn't need this section about the condo checklist. Mm-hmm. However, is it bad to have a condo checklist? And it's like, if this applies to you, and that's why I have it as a separate, because if it doesn't apply, you just skip that section completely. So if we have that and then we implement it in such a way that it's in command, and let me see if I can find someone here that is.
Yeah, one of the questions we get a lot, whether it's new agent or an agent transferring over, that's even a seasoned or successful agent, is for checklists. They know what they're doing. They just have not actively written it down, so to speak, right? They're kind of flying by the seat of their pants. So that would be, this is great for that. And I love the idea of the condo checklist as well, because we don't do a lot of condos out on the south suburbs. However, there are pockets of areas where there are, condos, and this would be available for them when that came up.
Yeah, so here I am in the under contract. So I've got, this one here, and if it's not, oops, don't want to click that. If it's not a condo, you completely skip that and go right to attorney review. Okay, but the other thing I want you to see is, I've got the, so here you can see the tasks, right? So this is what we're building out. We're building out these task checklists, right? So if there's a condo checklist has 5 things in here, let's look at command. So here it shows 0, then all of a sudden we move it here, and it's got 5 checklists there. And if you're going to click on that, it says, have you collected the condo docs? Do you have the meeting minutes? Do you have the budgets and financials? Do you have the paid assessment letter? Do you have the 22.1? Right, so then you're like checking it off as you're completing it. The next category is the client update. So the client update will, if you have it checked, will send your client an email that says, here's what we've done today, right? How many times are clients saying, where are we and what's next and what are you doing for me? Where if they get, as you check things off, they get an email update that says, here's what we did today. Today we got through the attorney review and these 5 steps. Today we sent you all the condo docs, or we sent the other side all the condo docs. So that's the importance of this part here. You could just click on that client update and you can see it's got this email flag. So it will send them an email at the end of the day. So now you're communicating with your agent, you're communicating with your clients, and that's a lovely thing to do. And then from here, you can toggle between the various stages as well. So again, this is a work in progress, so I don't have it all built out. I'm building it out in a spreadsheet first, and then I'm gonna type it into command. So LaDuina, one of my goals is to pitch this to various market centers to see if they see value in this. And then it's up to the market center to say, hey, for compliance purposes, here's the basic steps. And here it is for you, Mr. and Mrs. Agent. Okay? Yep. All right, that's high level what I'm looking to do. And, I'm just one person. So if I do it all by myself, it will take me a while. But if I got volunteers to say, hey, I'm part of the compliance team, let me help you, and I will help work on the compliance side of things, right? I've got the condo checklist ready to go. I've got most of it, 70% there, but I want to validate it and verify it with other people because I get in my head too much. and so I get in my way, and I want to get ready to pitch this to people. All right. Any other questions, comments? LaDuina, is this something you could maybe pitch to your market center to say, hey, this would be a great thing to do? Because if no one likes it, then, I'm wasting my time. Well, I'm not wasting my time because I'm going to use this.
Yeah.
I think it's a great pitch to have something at the market center level. Each agent can have it, and then each agent can tweak it and customize it to themselves. Because my checklist is going to be 5 times deeper than the basic one. Because what are the basics of getting the contract to close versus what's a Ignite session where bulletproofing your transaction, right? If you really want to bulletproof your transaction, you're adding many more steps in the process because you want to anticipate any headaches, any obstacles. And sometimes this will be a living, breathing document because you might add a step because of something that just happened, right? Something you're clear to close, you're at the final walkthrough and something happens and you're not closing. It's like, should I add a step in my workflow to prevent this from happening again? How can I prevent this from happening again? It's like, oh, let me add it to a checklist to ask so-and-so, did they do this? Right? The gift letter, the down payment, check comes from dad that you weren't expecting and the lender wasn't expecting. So have that conversation early on. It's like, where's your down payment money coming from? Is it a gift letter? So if you have that conversation up front, then you're not dealing with that last minute fire of the lender saying, hey, this down payment's coming from their dad that we weren't anticipating, and now we can't close because the money hasn't matured. Now we have to add the dad to the contract. Once you get burned, that's where you start improving and implementing things in your process. All right, so that's high level what I wanted to go over and pitch to you guys. And it's a pitch for agents as well as market centers to have some consistency in both training, their processes, their workflows. And it's a value add if the market center has something like this that they can give to their agents to say, here's your checklist. Here's how you're going to survive in real estate.
I think that this is super great because I know me as being not an agent, but an assistant to an agent. I always was like, I have no idea what's going on. There are so many things to do. So I think that this is a really good way to like break it down. If I could make one maybe like comment about it, is it possible that you could put who you're sending the emails to or who you're sending the documents to? Because I think that that's like the next step for me now, knowing what the whole process is. I just need to know like who it all goes to and who I'm getting it from, because there's so many moving parts in every transaction.
Yeah, so having the yes on the email task at least get your brain stimulated as I need to send an email and who's it going to go to. So within command, let's just go through here, for example. So you can assign to someone. So there's a couple of things here. You can assign it to someone, but in your processes, you're going to have identified, hey, there's an email here. Who does it go to? And what does it say? So having this, so that's going to be an individual team concept of where does this go? So some of these might be very intuitive, right? The buyer agency agreement. Who does that go to? Right? Some of that is going to be, now you have this, who's it going to go to? And then you start saving that. All right, I know I need to send it to the managing broker. I need to send it back to the client. So the buyer agency agreement would be sending it back to the client and making sure your market center had a copy of it. Right? The contract would be sending it to your client, sending it to the attorney, sending it to the lender. Right? So those are going to be the details that we're not going to be able to put into this here. You're going to have to, like, as you go through each line by line, it's like, what does this mean to us in our team? Who does it go to? Okay.
Totally. I love that. Yeah.
All right. And who are you an assistant for?
Tony McVicker.
Oh, great. All right. I remember your emails now. All right. That's all I have. Okay.
Thank you so much. It was absolutely helpful, and I can't wait to see where this is going to go.
Yeah, and if you and Tanya have some ideas, if Tanya's like, I have 5 steps in my process that aren't in Joe's checklist, where do they go?
Sure, yeah. We were kind of going through the checklist earlier today about like what we have in there that needs to be added, that needs to be taken away. So once I have a full checklist of that and we've got it completely good to go, then maybe I can send you a copy and you can just kind of see how ours differs.
And keep in mind, the copy that you have, it was only like as much as I could put in a short period of time. My goal is to keep improving on this. And again, from my perspective, I got 2 checklists. I'm creating one for agents to be able to use at an 80% level that 80% of the agents can use. And then I'm creating one for me and my team, which is, the one that's got 78 deep and 5 wide. And Tanya's is probably going to be deeper than the basic ones here. So it's not going to be surprising if she's got 5 things in there. But in terms of her checklist, if she's got something that says, talk to the lender, then it's for you guys to plug in. It's like, at what point do we add that in? Is that cultivate? Is that appointment? Is that active? Right? And then you plug it in there. It's like, oh, it makes sense to do it while we're at the appointment or once that they're really active.
Right. Like you said, it's a living, breathing document. Things will change all the time.
All right, yeah, I'd be more than happy to do masterminds with you and other agents in the office as well. We've got a huge whiteboard in our basement. That would be my ideal scenario, where we have a whiteboard and we're just writing things out. It's like, all right, we do this. It's like, all right, class, where does this go?
I love
And
that.
then it goes here, or
Yeah.
it goes here. And for some people, it's like, well, I'm going to put it over here. Great. It works for you that way. You put it over there. For the rest of us, we're going to put it over here. That would be my ideal workshop, is to have people in a room. And I know with COVID, it's kind of hard to do, but on this like whiteboard where we're just like putting things together and taking everyone's list, which is probably this way, one-way list, to chunking it down in all these groups.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much.
I appreciate your input and appreciate you being here. And
Of course.
we'll see what happens next week.
Thank you so much.